Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. We've pulled together a stack of sources today, articles, discussions, different takes, really all circling around this really crucial idea, learning and speaking English. Well, it's not just about the words, is it? It's like a total mental game.
That's exactly right. We've got a collection of material here that really pushes past the usual grammar books and vocab lists. It hammers home the psychological side of mastering a language. Less about knowing rules and way more about building that inner strength, resilience.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty straightforward. Unpack these sources, pull out the best strategies, the key insights to help you build that mental resilience for your own English journey. We're really going deep into the mental stuff today, building confidence, consistency, tackling those psychological hurdles from the inside out.
Yeah, because what comes through loud and clear from, all these sources is that fluency and confidence, they fundamentally come down to your mental toughness, maybe even more than just how much vocabulary or grammar you've accumulated.
Right. Your spoken English level often reflects your mindset, not just your knowledge.
Yeah, definitely.
And what jumps out immediately looking at this material is how they all seem to pinpoint the same kind of mental blocks, the things that really hold learners back. And crucially, these aren't really language problems per se. They're psychological issues that just, show up when you're learning English.
Absolutely. The sources consistently highlight things like the fear of making mistakes. It's huge. That deep-seated fear of judgment, right? Of sounding maybe less smart than you are in your own language.
Oh yeah, the classic "I'll speak when I'm perfect" idea, which is basically a trap.
It is. One source literally calls it the perfection trap. You're waiting for this moment that it never arrives. And that often goes hand in hand with the comparison game.
Yeah.
You look at native speakers or really advanced learners and your brain just goes, nope, I'll never sound like that, so why even try?
Which then pushes you straight into what they call the comfort zone curse. You just stick to what's safe, maybe listening, maybe reading, but avoiding any situation where you might actually have to speak and, mess up.
Right. And the sources are really firm on this. These are psychological hurdles, mental blocks. They argue pretty strongly that if you don't address these directly, no amount of traditional practice, flashcards, grammar drills, whatever, is going to fully unlock your potential. You have to tackle them head on, psychologically.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if those are the blocks, what's the solution? What are the core mindset shifts these sources recommend to actually break free? What's the foundational work we need to do in our heads?
Well, the first one, and maybe the most critical that comes up again and again, is embracing mistakes.
Embracing them, not just like putting up with them. What's the difference they're making there?
It's a complete reframe. The core idea is mistakes aren't failures at all. They're actually proof you're trying. And even better, proof you're learning. One source calls them data points. Another says they're like teachers or signposts. They show you exactly what needs work.
So instead of that hot flush of embarrassment when you stumble over a word, you're supposed to think, useful information.
Precisely. Or at least train yourself to react that way over time. It's about reframing that feeling. A mistake means you were brave enough to actually try. Think about a baby learning to walk. They fall constantly, but they don't see it as failure, right? Each fall is just data about balance, gravity, where to put their feet next time. Every slip up in English, it's not a step back. It's actually a concrete step closer to fluency because you've just learned something, or at least spotted a gap.
I really liked how one source put it, mistakes muscles. Like every mistake you learn from actually builds strength, builds up those language muscles.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
And another one called this cultivating a fear crusher mindset, really hitting that fear aspect.
It really is about taking the power away from the fear. If you see mistakes as valuable as muscle builders, well, the fear loses its sting, doesn't it? There was even this quite radical but interesting idea mentioned, the 1 mistake a day challenge. Like deliberately try to make at least one noticeable mistake every single day, just to normalize it, to strip away its psychological power.
Wow, okay. That sounds terrifying, but I can see how it would be effective. Okay, so embracing mistakes is number one. What's next? What's the next big mindset shift?
Consistency over intensity. This came through very, very clearly. English learning, they say, is a marathon, definitely not a sprint.
Okay, seems straightforward enough, but what's the deeper insight there beyond just, study regularly?
Well, the insight is really in the why. Why small daily habits are so much more effective than those long and frequent cramming sessions. It's about building neural pathways. Habit formation, doing just 15-20 minutes every day. It doesn't just add up mathematically over time. It signals to your brain repeatedly that English is important. It keeps those connections active daily.
So it's like making it a small, non-negotiable part of your routine, almost like brushing your teeth.
Yes, exactly. That analogy was used. When you make it a small daily ritual, even just 15 minutes, you're telling your brain, this is essential. This is part of who I am now. That consistency builds a much stronger, more sustainable habit than, say, hitting the books for 3 hours once a week. Your brain can just dismiss that big session as a one-off. This is what they call the marathon mindset, playing the long game.
Okay, got it. So embrace mistakes, be consistent. What's the third core belief or mindset shift they highlighted?
Progress over perfection. And this one directly attacks that perfection trap we talked about. The core message is simple. Stop waiting until you're perfect, whatever that even means to actually speak or use your English.
Because honestly, you'll be waiting forever, right?
Pretty much, yeah. The sources really encourage you to prioritize making progress right now, today. The goal isn't perfect English. It's just slightly better English than yesterday. They even say, be proud to speak broken English or imperfect English. That's genuinely how growth happens. You have to actually use the language to improve it, and using it inevitably means making mistakes sometimes. This is the progress perfection idea. Continuous improvement, not some flawless end state.
Okay, so those are the big shifts in thinking. But it's one thing to, believe these things intellectually. It's another to actually put them into action. What practical, actionable strategies and habits did the sources suggest for building this mental toughness, for applying these mindsets day to day?
Yeah, there were some really excellent concrete techniques for just overcoming that initial inertia, that moment when you know you should speak but freeze up. One really good one is the 5-second courage rule. Heard of this?
I think so. Mel Robbins, right. Count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just move.
Exactly that. When you have an opportunity to speak, or even just need to start a learning task you're dreading, you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you physically move, or just speak. It apparently interrupts that part of your brain that floods you with doubt and fear before it can take hold and stop you.
That fits right in with the fear crusher idea.
Yeah.
Simple, but powerful. And wasn't there also something about failure reps, like deliberately making mistakes?
Yes, similar to the 1 mistake a day challenge, but maybe framed slightly differently, like aim to make, say, 3 small mistakes deliberately each day. It's almost like exposure therapy for your mistake phobia. You just get used to it.
Okay, so that's about taking immediate action. What about longer-term brain rewiring, techniques for changing those default thought patterns?
Right. The yet mindset came up quite a bit.
Yes. Tell us about that.
It's really powerful for tackling those limiting beliefs we all have. You take a negative thought like, I can't speak fluently, and you just consciously add the word yet at the end. I can't speak fluently yet. That simple word signals to your brain that your current state isn't permanent, that improvement is possible, expected even. It keeps you open to growth instead of shutting down.
That's clever. And affirmations were mentioned too, right? Daily positive statements.
Daily repetition of things like, I am learning English every day. I embrace mistakes because they help me grow. I am becoming more confident speaking. That sounds a bit cliche sometimes, maybe. But the idea is to consciously feed your brain positive input to counter the negative self-talk.
And visualization, like picturing success.
Yeah, visualization training. Taking a few moments to close your eyes and really vividly imagine yourself having a successful conversation. Not just picturing it, but trying to feel the confidence, the ease. These techniques are all about intentionally shaping your internal dialogue and your mental imagery.
Okay. Shifting gears slightly to building daily practice routines that actually support this kind of mindset. What specific routines or habits came up in the sources?
Well, there was one interesting idea. A morning English only rule. The suggestion was to dedicate, say, the first 30 minutes after you wake up purely to English. Thinking in English, planning your day in English, maybe even just a basic internal monologue. It kind of sets the mental tone for the day, primes your brain.
And wasn't there a more structured routine mentioned, something like a spoken English confidence routine?
Yes, exactly. A very specific 5-minute routine designed to quickly build confidence in your actual spoken English. It combines 1 minute of those affirmations we just talked about, Then 2 minutes of shadow listening. That's where you repeat sentences out loud immediately after hearing them, trying to mimic the pronunciation, rhythm, intonation.
Oh, right. Copying native speakers directly.
Exactly. Builds confidence in just producing the sounds. And then the final 2 minutes are for a 1-minute talk.
A 1-minute talk. Is that just talking to yourself?
Pretty much. Speaking out loud on any topic for 1 or 2 minutes, even if nobody hears you. It builds the mental habit of formulating thoughts and actually speaking English, but without the pressure of a real conversation partner initially. So the shadowing builds confidence in the physical act of speaking, the sounds and rhythm, while the 1-minute talk builds confidence in generating your own thoughts spontaneously in English.
That makes sense. Now, these sources also seem to really emphasize switching from just passive consumption, listening to podcasts like this one or watching videos, to active engagement. Why is that distinction so critical for mindset and learning?
Well, passive learning feels easier, right? It's comfortable. Your brain is taking information in, but it's not really being forced to work. It's not retrieving language, processing it actively, or producing anything. Active learning, on the other hand, things like pausing an audio to summarize what you just heard out loud, or reading an article and then writing a short paragraph about it, or even just talking to yourself about what you're doing as you cook dinner. That's harder. It forces your brain to actively retrieve vocabulary, figure out grammar, form sentences, produce language.
Right, because your brain builds those stronger, more useful neural connections when it's producing language, not just passively receiving it.
Exactly. That's the core of the active brain mindset mentioned in one source. Actively using the language, even if it's imperfectly, builds real confidence and makes the knowledge stick in a way passive listening just doesn't. It feels less like studying and more like actually doing the thing you want to do.
And making it fun was also brought up as a key strategy, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Crucial for sustainability. Integrating English into stuff you already genuinely enjoy is key. Watch those Netflix shows you love, but switch the audio to English. Listen to English music or podcasts you find interesting. Follow YouTubers you like. It keeps your brain engaged almost without realizing it because you're focused on the content you enjoy. It stops it feeling like a chore.
And what about tracking progress? How does that play into mindset?
That's essential for motivation. It's easy to feel like you're not improving, especially on the bad days. So keeping a simple record of small wins, maybe tracking new words you actually used in a conversation this week, or counting how many times you used that 5-second rule successfully, it helps you see how far you've actually come. Even small progress, when visible, is a really powerful motivator. It fights that feeling of being stuck. And also remembering your core why. Why are you learning English in the first place? Travel, job, connecting with people. Keeping that reason front and center helps you push through when things feel tough.
Right, connecting back to the bigger purpose. There were a couple of other, maybe more unusual techniques mentioned too, like neurobics.
Yeah, that was interesting. It's about doing familiar tasks differently to engage your brain more actively. Like the example given was brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand while consciously naming the objects in your bathroom in English. It forces your brain out of autopilot and makes it actively process English in a simple everyday context. A bit quirky maybe, but interesting.
And the Pomodoro power-up, combining study bursts with physical breaks.
Right, using the Pomodoro technique, studying intensely for, say, 25 minutes, then taking a short 5-minute break, but making that break active, like do some shadow boxing moves or jumping jacks. Again, all designed to keep the brain active, engaged, prevent burnout, and really build that mental resilience alongside the language skills themselves.
Okay, so building the positive is key. But just as important, it seems, is identifying and actively avoiding the negative stuff, the mental toxins, as one source called them, that can sabotage your progress.
Definitely. The sources warned against common negative thought patterns, like all or nothing thinking. I messed up that one sentence, therefore I'm terrible to English and I should just give up. One mistake doesn't define your whole ability. It's just one mistake.
And native speaker worship. I think we all fall into that sometimes. Putting native speakers on this impossible pedestal and forgetting they also started somewhere. And frankly, they make mistakes in their own language too sometimes.
Exactly. It's an unrealistic comparison. And related to that, grammar overdose, where you prioritize perfect grammatical accuracy above actually communicating. The sources really stress that the primary goal is effective communication. Perfect grammar can develop over time with practice, but it shouldn't be a barrier that stops you from speaking at all. These thought patterns are toxic because they just feed the fear and that perfectionism we talked about. They keep you stuck.
So to really solidify all this, to put it into practice, the sources suggested some specific challenges people could try.
Yeah, besides the ongoing one mistake a day idea, there was mention of things like a focused, maybe 7-day mental toughness challenge.
Okay, and what would something like that typically involve? Examples.
Well, it's designed to gently push you just outside your comfort zone, consistently for a week. So things like consciously practice the 5-second rule several times each day. Deliberately record short, imperfect voice notes, maybe summarizing something you learned. Just get comfortable hearing your own voice and accepting imperfections. Challenge yourself to have one short conversation, maybe with a language partner online or even a friendly barista, and start it by saying something like, "My English isn't perfect, but," just to own it. Maybe even try to teach someone one simple thing in English that really forces you to actively use the language and structure your thoughts.
So these challenges are really about building those mental muscles intentionally, making the abstract concepts feel real through actual practice.
Precisely. They turn the mindset shifts from just ideas into concrete actions and hopefully new habits.
Okay, wow, that was a really, really insightful deep dive. Let's try and quickly recap the main pillars we've pulled out from these sources for building that strong English mindset.
Yeah, I think the absolute foundation is recognizing that mindset itself is key. Really reframing how you see the whole learning process. And specifically, that means, number one, embrace mistakes, see them not as failures, but as valuable data, as muscle builders. Number two, prioritize consistency. Small daily actions are way more powerful than infrequent, intense bursts. It's a marathon. And number three, choose progress over perfection. Start speaking now, accept imperfection. Focus on getting better day by day.
Right. And then put all that into action with those practical strategies. Things like the 5-second rule to just get started, using the yet mindset and affirmations to rewire your thinking. And crucially, making that shift from just passive consumption to active engagement whenever you can, forcing your brain to actually produce the language.
Absolutely. I think these sources make a really compelling case that building this mental strength, this resilience, this bias towards action, it's just as vital, maybe even more vital, especially early on, than just memorizing vocabulary lists or grammar rules. It's like the psychological engine that drives all the other learning forward.
It really does reshape how you think about the whole journey, doesn't it? It's not just about filling your head with words. It's about strengthening your spirit, your approach.
It does. And as one of the sources put it so powerfully, fluency isn't about having a perfect tongue. It's about having an unbreakable spirit.
Wow, that's good. And there was another striking phrase too. Your mindset is your accent. Sharpen it. That really sticks with you.
Yeah, it completely shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from just external performance and onto your internal strength and perception.
So for you listening right now, maybe consider this question based on everything we've dug into today. What's one small active step you can take this week, specifically aimed at building your English mind, rather than just adding to your vocabulary list?